So I was looking at some blocks on my office where I work, and I found all of these different blocks that there are different types of HVAC diffusers, returns, exhaust, and so on. But these blocks were used by different people, um, which will cause errors and work inefficient in AutoCAD, because as you can see, some people were using this type of blocks, others this other one, and so on. So I realized this is a waste of time. So in today's video, I'm gonna try to combine all of these blocks into one dynamic block that can be used for everybody, and it is a standard dynamic block. So let's see how we're gonna do that today. I always recommend when creating dynamic blocks, if you're gonna use visibility states, which we're gonna see an example later on this video, you should start with the block that you use the most, right? So ask yourself that question: which block do you use the most? In my case, out of all of these air vents, the block that we use the most is this return diffuser. So I'm gonna start with that block. So to create that, um, I'm gonna simply use the rectangle command using its shortcut, and then I'm gonna click point over here, and then I'm gonna click the dimension option. So once I do that, I can type 24, enter, 24, and enter. And I will have this rectangle. So I'll simply click on the screen, and I'll have my 2 feet by 2 feet air vent. All right. So before I do anything else, a good practice when creating dynamic blocks is always put or place your objects on layer 0. So that way, when you change layers, the dynamic block will be correctly placed on the layer that you choose. So let me do that. I'm gonna change this to layer 0. Okay. So once I do that, I can continue creating my return air vent or diffuser. So I'm gonna offset it using the offset keyboard shortcut, which is O, and then I'm gonna offset it 1 inch. So once I do that, I can simply click this rectangle and move my mouse in, and then click like so. So once I have that, I'm gonna use a line command to create a single line that goes from this point to this other point, like so. So again, I'm gonna create another line. In this case, instead of using the line command, I'm simply gonna press the spacebar to repeat the line command, and then I'm gonna simply click here and here like so. Okay. So again, all of this needs to be on layer 0. So I'm gonna place this layer 0 and everything on layer 0. So you don't have any problems later on when you try to place your dynamic block in certain layers. Okay. So that's basically my most used air vent, which is this return air vent. No, sorry, this is a supply air vent. So once I have that, I'm gonna make this into a block. So I'm gonna select everything and type B that's the shortcut to create a block. So once I do that, I'm gonna name my dynamic block. In this case, I'm gonna call it lazy vent. Again, because that's the name of my YouTube channel, Lazy Arquitecto, and Lazy Bend is a way to simplify your life, right? You don't have to like have different dynamic blocks for supply, for exhaust, for return diffusers. Just have one and you forget about the rest. All right. So that's what Lazy Bend dynamic block is gonna try to achieve here. So let's see if we do it. So Lazy Bend, make sure the base point is checked so we can uh, click the correct base point. So a good practice here is in order to select a nice base point, you need to think about when you insert this block, how you're going to insert it, right? So for instance, if I go to this RCP over here, so I'm going to go to this RCP. So you're probably going to use it and when you're going to place it, like in any of these grids. So a good location would be on the corner so you can align it with your grids, right? So that's what we're gonna do over here. So again, B for block. So I'm gonna pick this corner over here as my base point. So I'm gonna click like so. So this is a regular block, as you can see here on the uh, quick property palette. This is a regular block. It's called Lazy Bend. Now, how do we make this into a nice dynamic block that can simplify our life? We can do that by double clicking on your block and then we click OK. So here we are on the block editor interface, and we're gonna make this a dynamic block using parameters and actions. All right. So for that, we're gonna need two things. First, we're gonna need this block authoring palette. So if you don't see it on your AutoCAD interface, I'm gonna close it just to show you where to find it. And it's gonna be here on the ribbon. So block editor and then authoring palette. So simply click to open it and it's gonna be right there. The second thing that we're gonna need is properties, the properties palette. So if you don't see it, simply type PR and press enter and you will see it right there. Okay, so that's the two important palettes that we're gonna need to make this into a nice dynamic block. So one of the first things that we're gonna do here is add a linear parameter. So again, click the parameter tab and then click linear. So once we do that, following the command line instructions, we're going to specify a start point. In this case, my start point is going to be here. So I'm going to click once and then specify an endpoint. I'm going to pick over here, click, and then I'm going to move down like so and place it finally over here. All right. So we just added a linear parameter. So we need to change a couple of things here. So let's select our linear parameter and then go into the properties. We're gonna go down and first of all, to avoid any confusions in the future, because we're gonna keep adding linear parameters and more actions, it's a good practice to rename these parameters. So we're gonna rename it here on the property labels. So right now it says distance 1, which is over here. But let's rename it to something that makes more sense. In this case, I'm gonna rename it, since this is a air vent or diffusers. I'm gonna call length and press enter. So as you can see, it is updated now. And then Another thing that we're gonna change here is we have two grip stretch points over here, 1 and 2, but we only need one. When we create dynamics blocks, another good practice is to try to keep this dynamic block as simple as possible. You don't want to bring so many grips, so many visibility states, so that way it's going to be confused for other people to use it. So you try to minimize the actions and anything that you add to this dynamic block, right? To make it concise, simple to use, right? So following that, we don't need two grips over here. Let's remove one grip. So number of grips, let's change it to 1. So once we do that, you can see that we only have one stretching grip now, which is nice. And then the final thing that we're gonna modify to this linear parameter is the, if we go up here, the distance type over here. So right now it's set to none. We're gonna pick list over here. And then I'm gonna click over here on the distant value list, and I'm gonna expand that, clicking over here. So, and this is to, again, make the person that is gonna use this block lives easy. So how do we do that? By giving them only 2 or 3 options, using the standard diffuser or return sizes, right? So we don't want to give them unlimited options, as they might pick, hey, a 4 feet 2 inches diffuser size. You know what I mean? So you want to guide them, so that way they have 3 different options to pick, and um, everybody using this block would work more efficient. So the way we're gonna do that is, right now we have 2 feet diffuser. We're gonna add 1 feet also, and then we're gonna add 4 feet. So those are the 3 options that we're gonna add, and then we're gonna click OK. So once we do that, you can see that these guidelines are showing over here. So this would be at 1 feet, 2 feet, and 4 feet. So now that we have those options, as you can see, there is an exclamation mark that is showing over here. So that simply means that this linear parameter is saying, hey, I need an action in order to function. So we're gonna add this action. So let's go to the block authoring palette and click the action tab. And over here, we're gonna add a stretch action. So simply click on it and following the instructions on the command line. Again, it's asking to select a parameter. So the parameter is this over here. So I'm gonna click on it, and then it's asking to specify a parameter point. So the parameter point is gonna be where this stretching grid is. So I'm gonna click over here like so. So finally it says specify first corner of a stretch frame. So the stretch frame, I want to be included all of these different guides. So I'm gonna click here and then over here like so. So, and then also it's asking to select my objects to be stretched. So I'm gonna stretch all of these objects like so, and then I'm gonna press enter. So once I do that, you can see that the exclamation mark went away, because this linear parameter have already an action, which is the stretch action that we added it. So this is complete. So a good practice before we do anything else, we start adding more parameters or action, is to test your block. So that way, if something is not working right, you can quickly fix it. So let's do that. Let's go over here on the test block option, and we're gonna click that in order to test what we did so far. All right, so that's our 2 feet by 2 feet diffuser, supply diffuser. So again, with the stretching point, if we want a 4 feet like so, it's working nicely. Now if I go to 1 foot, it also is working nicely. All right, so now let's keep um, working on this air bend dynamic block, also called lazy bend. So let me close the test block editor by clicking this option on the ribbon. And so now that we know what we did so far is working nicely, we can keep finishing this airband dynamic block. So now what we need to add is a second linear parameter. So for the width over here of the airband, because right now we only have length. So let's go and add that linear parameter. Again, go into the parameter tab and then click linear. In this case, I'm gonna start from here from the bottom. So click once, and then my endpoint would be over here. Click, and then finally I'm gonna move it to the left like so and click. Again, we're gonna repeat the 3 steps that we did before with this other linear parameter, which are going on the property palette, changing the name, going to the number of grips, changing it to 1, and finally changing the distance type to list, and add a couple of options for the user so you simplify their life, and you also make sure that people won't be using the sizes of this airband randomly, which will cause problems to the overall team that is using AutoCAD. All right. So for this, the standard sizes are 6 inches on the width. We also have 1 foot, 2 foot, of course, 4 feet already. We already have that. So those 3 would be the distances that we want to add. So I'm going to click OK. So as you can see, it shows some guides over here. So again, the exclamation mark is showing. We already know why it's showing that exclamation mark. So let's simply go to the Actions tab and click Stretch. So what we're gonna do is select the parameter. In this case, it's gonna be the width parameter. Select the start for the stretching point, which is gonna be here, and then select my area to be stretched. It's gonna be over here. And then finally, my objects will be all of this. So once I do that, I can simply press enter and then test my block so we can check that everything is working nicely. Again, that's the size of my diffuser. If I go down to 1 foot, there are also 1 foot by 1 foot diffusers. So let me try that out. So 1 foot by 1 foot, as you can see it from the properties palette, which is nice. We also have 4 feet by 6 inches diffusers, or they call it linear diffusers. So that's good. We already have that option and so on. Again, we have all of the options that we need now, which is nice. So this diffuser, it's 100% done. However, we need to think about now on the return diffusers. So this is the supply. Now we need to continue with the return. Okay, so let's close this block editor, and then let's go to our block. So again, we already finished all of the steps to have our supply diffuser done in different sizes. Now we're gonna go to the next step, which is add to the same dynamic block our return diffuser. Okay, so the way we're gonna do that is implementing a new feature in this block, which is called a visibility state. So in order to add a visibility state, we need to go on the parameter tab, and then there's going to be an option over here that's called visibility. So let's simply click on that. And then once we do that, following the command line, it says to specify a parameter location. So what I like to do is kind of align it with my standard block. So I'm going to hover over here and then move to the side like so. So I'm going to click here. So it's right there, my visibility parameter. Now it's showing an exclamation mark. And at this point, you should know already why it's showing this exclamation mark. It's because it needs something, right? So in order to fix this, what we're going to do is go to the ribbon, and then we have this option called visibility states. So we're going to click that, and then we're going to have this visibility states dialog box. So at this point, we only have one visibility state, 0, which is this dynamic block that we have right now on the screen. So first of all, to avoid any confusions, we're going to rename this visibility state using this option of rename, and I'm gonna call this supply. So again, following my idea of keeping things simple and easier to work, so at this point I recommend to keep it simple. I could rename this air vent supply, diffuser supply, but it's understood already what this dynamic block is an air vent. So in this case, for the visibilities, I will keep it simple: supply, return, exhaust, something like that. Okay, so I'll press enter, and then this is again the supply for this block. Now what we need to do is create a new visibility state. So I'm gonna click new, and then I'm gonna make sure before that everything is leave visibility of existing objects unchanged in new state. That's the option that we want, because that means all of these objects that we are seeing right now on the screen are gonna still be shown whenever we create this new visibility state. So we have a comment from the chat. So let me. Hi, Joshua. Thank you for being here. He's saying cool stuff. Big fan of the channel. Thank you for your comment. And I'm very happy that my work is being recognized by some of you guys. That's awesome. That just keep me motivated to keep showing here each Saturday at 10 a.m. To showing you a little bit of my knowledge, trying to, save you some time, because I believe our time is important. If you believe that too, then you should subscribe, because here it's all about saving time using AutoCAD. So thank you, Joshua, and let's keep moving. So again, make sure that option is selected, and let's rename our next visibility state. In this case, it's gonna be a return, right? Return, and click OK. So we have two visibility states now. We have another comment on the chat. It's Aman Carvinkar. Hello, Aman. Thank you for being here on the channel. Hope you're gonna learn something new today and save some time using AutoCAD. Okay, so we're gonna need one more option or visibility state. So let's click new and make sure again that option is selected, leave visibility of existing objects, and we're gonna call this exhaust. Okay, so this is another type of air vent, usually used on restrooms, right? On restrooms, you usually have exhaust, air vents or fans. So we're gonna have those three options, and we're gonna click at this point. Before clicking OK, what we want to do is click or double click on the return option, so that way we know we are in this state of return. So I'm gonna click OK at this time, and before proceeding, we have another comment from the chat. It's Angu Hain. Hi, Angu Hain. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I do my best. Say hello. Do you casually stream monthly or weekly? I've been streaming for the last 4 weeks already, continuously, and I plan to keep doing that. So yeah, my goal is to keep live streaming each Saturday at 10 a.m. So yeah, so that's my goal, and I've been doing it already again for a month or so. So thank you for, if you are new to the channel, just subscribe, because again, if your time is important, you believe on that, then this is your channel, man. Okay, so we have another chat, another comment on the chat. Thank you for being active in the chat. That makes this live streaming more interactive, and I really like that, right? So we have another comment, says Aman Carvinkar. Hi, Aman. And he said, I learned a lot through you. Thanking for this. Yeah, so you're welcome. I like to, share a bit of my knowledge. I I think everybody should know things in order to stop wasting time. So I believe that, and that's why I'm here each Saturday, trying to save some time. Right, Aman? So let's keep moving with this lazy bend dynamic block. So, uh, so right here we were adding visibility states. Right, so we created 3 different visibility states, and right now we are on the return option, but we are seeing still that the supply option with this X over here. So in order to make this the return option, which is only with one line instead of an X, what we're gonna do is remove this line, right? Well, not really remove it, but hide it. We cannot just delete it, because this line is being used by the supply dynamic block, remember? So, but we can hide it. So in order to hide it, let's go on the ribbon, and on the visibility panel, we have this nice option that says make invisible. So if you click that, you can see that your line now is not showing, which is nice, because this is the way that we represent a return with only one diagonal line. So before doing anything, let's quickly test this, and let's go back to the test block option over here. So let's click that, and let's quickly test this dynamic block. So again, for our supply, it's working nicely. Now, if we want to change the visibility option, now we have this icon over here. So let's change to the return by clicking on it. And as you can see, the X is not showing anymore, which is what we want. Let's keep testing different sizes again, like so. So yeah, it's working nicely. So that's pretty cool. All right. So now we know that our supply and our return dynamic blocks are working nicely and they are 100% done. So let's keep moving with the next air vent type. So let's close over here the close test block and let's go to our dynamic block. So at this point, we need to create, well, we already created the exhaust visibility state, remember? So in order to activate that option or change to the exhaust state, where we're gonna go is over here on the visibility, we're gonna click this triangle over here, and we're gonna select the exhaust option, all right? So as you can see, once you select the exhaust option, it already, the line that we hide it, it's also gonna show again. Do you see it? So that's okay. So what we need here now that we are on the exhaust option is stop for a moment and think about what do we need for the exhaust. Do we need all of these different sizes, 2x4s, 6 inches width by 2 feet? Do we really need all of these different types of exhaust? I don't think so, because I've been working on an architecture firm more than 6 years already, and I've never used any other exhaust fan that a 1 foot by 1 foot. I'm sure there are more over there, right? But in my case, I only used this exhaust fan of 1 foot by 1 foot. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna reuse some of these objects by selecting it. So I'm gonna select like so, and I'm gonna copy it from the base point using the Control Shift and C on my keyboard. Again, Control Shift and C, and then you can see it says copy base. So I'm gonna select this base point on this corner. So I'm gonna click. So once I do that, I'm gonna select everything but the visibility state. And the way I'm gonna do it is holding the shift on my keyboard, I can deselect objects. So I'm gonna holding the shift, I'm gonna deselect this visibility parameter. And then once I have that, I'm gonna hide it with the option that we used before, which is the make invisible. All right. So click on that. And as you can see, there is nothing here right now, only the visibility state. And we are again on the exhaust state or visibility state, which is what we want. At this point, remember what we just previously copied? We need to paste it here. So simply Control V will bring back wherever we copied. And in order to place it in the correct location, which is over here, we're gonna type 0, 0, 0 and press enter. So once we do that, we have this object at the right location. And what we need to do here again is following that idea that almost always we use 1 foot by 1 foot exhaust diffuser on restrooms. I'm gonna use the stretch command using its shortcut S. I'm gonna stretch this. Right now, this is a 2 feet by 2 feet. So I'm gonna stretch it 12 inches for each side. and I'm gonna have this 1 foot by 1 foot. And then at this time, I can erase this line because again, this line is not part of our diffuse of our supply dynamic block anymore. This is extra line that we copied, right? So we can, it's safe to remove it. So I'm gonna remove it, and then I'm gonna simply draw a circle that shows like that. And finally, I'm gonna use the trim command to trim the central part like so. And basically this is a standard way to show an exhaust fan for a restroom. So that's our block. Let's make sure that it is on layer 0, right? To avoid any errors when we place this block into our correct layer. So it's on layer 0, that's great. All right, so now we did a lot. It's time to test this dynamic block before we continue. So let's go back to the block editor and let's click test block. So at this point, let's quickly test this block. But before that, we have a question from the chat. So let me bring that question, and it's a man. A man is asking, I want to ask, suppose I want to draw multiple blocks with fixed spacing between them. Multiple blocks with, I think the best option for that, Aman, is to use an array parameter or option on your dynamic block. And we already covered that in other videos. So, but let me point it out to you really quick over here. So let me go to this and videos. And so I think we already covered that. Let me go to dynamic blocks, which is this playlist on our channel, Lazy Arquitecto. So if you go to this playlist of dynamic blocks, the question that is gonna help you is dynamic block with array. Yes, this is it. That's the video. So, and this is a dynamic block, again, using the array parameter or option. So I think that's what you are looking for, my friend. That will give you a fixed spacing between the blocks, and you'll have multiple blocks. Okay, so I hope that that'll help you. So let's keep moving then with this new dynamic block, the lazy bend. So let's keep moving, and we were about to test this dynamic block for the exhaust vent. So again, let's test this block really quick. That's the supply, the return, again showing only one of those lines. And then if we go to the exhaust option, you can see that we have our nicely 1 foot by 1 foot exhaust that we want. In this case, that's the best way to do it because we don't want to have a return like this, and then once you change to the exhaust, you will still have a huge 2 feet by 4 feet exhaust fan. That's not common. So that's why I believe now that we make the exhaust to only one size, the size that we use the most is the best choice. Okay, so let's go and close this test block, and let's go to our block. So at this point, we did so many things. We created a supply, a return, and we added it also an exhaust on this lazy bend. So it's time for us to close this block and save the changes. Make sure you save the changes before you do anything else. So save. And let's quickly go over all of these blocks that are right here, right? That we started with. So again, we have this existing supply. We don't need that anymore because we already have it here on the lazy band. Let's get rid of it. We have this other supply that is supposed to be for the new, but again, this is overkill. Let's keep things simple. So for new, if you want to show a new supply, you have many options, but my favorite is simply place the object or the block in a new layer, in this case, new band, and place your existing band on another layer, in this case, X diffuser or X band, however you want to name your layers. But once you have those two options of, existing and new, so that way you can, like, if I do a preview over here quickly, you can see that your new bands will show bold and darker, and your existing ones will show lighter. That's a way to differentiate between existing and new. And I think this is more efficient, right? You don't want to have different blocks for new to show new or existing. Another way is to add a short word EX over here and N for new. So that's another way if you want to do it that way too. But again, this is the best option, dark and light for existing and new. So now we don't need this new anymore, so we can get rid of it. We don't need anything of this. So again, this is the return. So the block that they were using, it's making things more complex. Again, showing this little hatch over here, which I don't think is the right way. So we have this over here. Let's check. So return 2x2 returns. So we don't need this. Let's get rid of it. We have 2x4 feet return. Let's check. Yes, we have it. We don't need it. Let's get rid of it. For the new, again, we can change that to the return, and we have existing and new, so we don't need this anymore. Let's get rid of it. We have this new return 2x4, so again, that's our new return to 2x4. Let's get rid of it. We don't need all of this mess. And again, here there is one more dynamic block that they were using. So they were using diffusers, return supplies, 2x4, which we already have all of these options. So we don't need this anymore. Let's get rid of it, right? Oops, before we keep moving, we have another comment on the chat, and it is Felicia Hernandez. Hi, Felicia. Felicidades, hijo. She said, by the way, I speak Spanish also, so that's my first language, if you didn't know. So, gracias, Felicia Hernandez, por estar aquí, for being here. So let's keep moving. And so now that we have this linear supply over here, is not even a block. Some people are still using single lines for this, which is a bad idea because usually you use these air vents, many of them, right? If you have a ceiling plan like this, you'll probably have like 20 or 10 or whatever. So once you start using a lot of these, it is the best practice to have it as a block. So that way, if you want to change something, you can simply update one block, and then the rest, the 10 or 20 more, will update automatically. That's the beauty of dynamic blocks and blocks. So let's see this linear diffuser, which probably is 6 inches by 4 feet. Let's see if we have it on here on the option. So supply and 6 inches, and yes, we have it. So we don't need it anymore. Let's get rid of it. This linear return. Let's check over here that we have that option, cover, return. Yes, we do have it. We don't need it anymore, so let's get rid of it. Okay, so let's keep moving. So this exhaust is a block, so I think we already have that. So exhaust. All right, nice. So we don't need this anymore. We can get rid of it. And now we have this concentric diffuser return. This is another type of supply or return. So in this case, it is a block. So here we need to think about, do we really need to add this type of diffuser into our dynamic block? Let's stop and think about it, right? So in 5 or 6 years that I've been working on this architecture office, I probably used this concentric diffuser probably 3 to 4 times in 5 years. So I don't think it's a good idea to add this concentric diffuser into another visibility state in our lazy bend block, because it will take the simplicity out of our block, right? And also, again, this is not used frequently. So I would recommend to have this separate, this concentric diffuser, have separately. So if you need it, you can simply copy and paste every once in a while. But for a daily use, just keep your dynamic block simple with 3 different options, right? So then the final decision would be to not add this concentric diffuser for the reasons that we just explained. So again, we can get rid of it or put it in another, save it in another place. And then, so we have our lazy bend ready. Here, I like to do is reset the block before doing anything else. So simply right click on your block and click reset. So that's what the most used air vent is gonna show. And then, so let's let me show you the second part, which is how to utilize your lazy bend dynamic block quickly. So for that, I'm gonna use, so again, that's the block. I simply copy that block here somewhere. So we're gonna use the insert option. Once we do that, we can have this block palette opened, and there are many different options. One, you can type the name of your block here. Let's say lazy band or whatever, and it will show up like that. So before doing anything else, I was explaining you that if you are using a hatch for your ceiling grid, in this case, I'm not, because this is a video on last week that we did on how to create a 2 by 4 feet ceiling grid. So that's why I explored it, this hatch. But we have a hatch over here, and I was explaining that in order to snap to that hatch or those corners, you need this option, or snap hatch. Turn it on. So simply set it to 1 to be able to snap your block into each corner of this hatch. So again, another option, important option, is to check on repeat placement of your block. This is nice because once you insert your block, you can snap here on the hatch and it will automatically insert the block again, so you don't have to insert it many times. So again, if you want, keep inserting your lazy pen like so. At this point, you can pick the one that you need. If you need 2x4s or whatever, or maybe you need a return, this or so on. Live streaming came to my supporters, either here on YouTube as a member or as a Patreon also. So thank you for supporting my work, and I'll see you next week at 10 a.m.